The Sun Belt regular season wraps up this weekend. It's Locked on Sun Belt.
You are Locked on Sun Belt, your daily podcast on the Sun Belt Conference, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome back to another edition of Locked on Sun Belt, your team every day. I'm your host, Dave Schultz. As the softball is already into the NCAA tournament this weekend, right? Cajuns are going to Baton Rouge. Texas State has also made it. Baseball is just wrapping up the regular season. And for all intents and purposes, I believe we have our 10. It's not totally that way. And I don't want my head to hurt. I don't want your head to hurt. And my heart hurts because, unfortunately, since Mark Helvey came on the podcast, South Alabama hasn't won a game. They had won 10 straight, and he hasn't won one since. And unfortunately, it does not appear that South Alabama is going to make it. Is it for sure to be the case? Not quite yet. And this is where the head-hurting portion of the show is. So South Alabama is in 11th place. They're 11-16. All right. Georgia Southern is 14-13. Georgia State is 14-13. And Old Dominion is 14-13. So it's feasible 3 of those 4 teams could be tied following the regular season. Well, not likely, but possible. And the reason all 4 can't be tied is because Old Dominion and Georgia State are playing each other. Now, the chances that Georgia State, who just swept Georgia Southern, gets swept by Old Dominion is not very likely. Georgia Southern is playing James Madison, and that looks like a 2 out of 3 series going one way or the other. So the chances that either Georgia State or Georgia Southern gets swept is probably not likely. South Alabama is going to Arkansas State. They very well could sweep. Arkansas State has won 17 ball games all year. They've won 6 in the Sun Belt. South Alabama had won 10 straight ball games overall and haven't won since. Schedule kind of caught up to them. They had to go to Southern Miss and then hosting Coastal Carolina. Although they did give Coastal Carolina, they got slugged around a little bit, but they battled in all 3 of those ball games. But again, it doesn't look good, and I would say that if Georgia Southern or Georgia State win one ball game, that would eliminate South Alabama, although I guess if Georgia State sweeps Old Dominion and those 2 teams didn't play each other, Old Dominion and South Alabama, more head-hurting. I don't know how that would I don't know if it's overall record or whatever the case is, but most likely we have our 10, okay? And so that's where I wanted to talk about it, although it does seem South Alabama has a real outside shot, but it's very outside. So Southern Miss and Coastal are atop the conference. You have Louisiana is 3rd, right? We've talked about them extensively, going from tied for 6th and looking like they're going in the wrong direction. They've actually won 6 straight Sun Belt ball games. They did lose to Louisiana Tech in to me, a meaningless midweek ball game before the series against Texas State. Troy finds themselves in 4th place. Then you have App State 15-11, James Madison 14-11. Those things are going to actually hurt them because it's all about winning percentage if they've played lesser ball games. And because right now, the Cajuns have, 1 less loss, right? And so if you have the same amount of losses but 1 less win, that's going to hurt the person with obviously 1 less win or 2 less wins, as the case may be. Texas State found themselves on the end of the broom against the Cajuns, 15-12. They are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th. Old Dominion is 8th. Georgia State and Georgia Southern also tied for 8th. South Alabama is 11th. Arkansas State 12th. ULM 13th. And Marshall is 14th. So not quickly. Let's go over the series. The big one, it's a very big one, is the Cajuns and Southern Miss. So on my radio show on 103.3 The GOAT here in Lafayette, heading into the ULM series, I believed and said that the Cajuns need to go 6-3 over the final 3 weekends. And I thought you could sweep ULM, take 2 out of 3 from Texas State, and take 1 from Southern Miss. Well, they went ahead of that right now. They've swept ULM, they swept Texas State, and that takes such pressure off of them to go in and trying to have to win a series against Southern Miss. Now, as we heard Scott Watkins from the Sun Herald say yesterday, you now have a team that's won 13 in a row playing for something, as Scott Barry, their head coach, their beloved head coach, has decided to call it a career following the season. So, again, I don't think because, the series, and we talked about this a little bit on my show and with Scott, because it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series. And even if the Cajuns win one and don't have to play until Wednesday, it would be a really tough turnaround if you move there, in this case, Thursday night pitcher, and move them to Friday and not having to face Tanner Hall. Then now you're pitching on, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 4 days rest. Well, that's good professionally, but these college kids pitch on 6 days rest. So, and I know they get stretched out a little bit for an inning or two, or maybe they're running on adrenaline towards the end of the Sun Belt Conference tournament, but you're certainly not going to set it up that way. If Nazoo is going to pitch for the Cajuns, he's going to pitch on Wednesday. And you're going to pitch him on Thursday, probably against Tanner Hall. And hopefully, your bats can come up with some runs, either against Tanner Hall, for that fact of the matter, or Friday or Saturday, if you're the Cajuns. If you're Southern Miss, as Scott Watkins said, you want to play for Scott Barry, but you're also trying to host. You're also trying to take care of some unfinished business from last year, where they did lose in the Super Regional. That may be, that's pushing it. But if they can win the series against the Cajuns and then win the Sun Belt Conference tournament, they have a pretty good shot at hosting. I would think that would be the case. All right. But the Cajuns aren't going in there, they're not going in there limping per se. They're going in there to try, and it's an odd feeling to try and not win a series, or not have to win a series, put it that way. But let's see if they can compete. They competed really well against Coastal Carolina. 2 of those 3 games were close, and the one game that got away from them was, the Saturday night ball game that, the ball went through the second baseman's legs. Now, he had plenty of chances to get the next few hitters out, but if, and that's a big if, John Taylor handles that ball, maybe it's a double play ball, and there's 2 outs, nobody out. So we'll see how well the Cajuns can compete, because somewhere along the way, you're going to have to beat Southern Miss and or Coastal Carolina. You may have to beat them both in the Sun Belt Conference tournament. All right. Number 2, Coastal, they're working on a national seed. They're going to be a top 8 seed, most likely. They're going to host. They're going to take on Marshall. I don't want to belittle Marshall here, but it's going to be a little bit of an exhibition. They've had a tough season. They're playing on the road, not playing at home. I think they're playing in like Charleston, and I'm sure it's just one big headache for the Thundering Herd, and it's been a tough season for them. So we'll see. Coastal could, get a lot of guys, some ABs and some innings, and I don't want to say rest this weekend, but maybe not go all out like you would if you needed to win the series. All right. I think they're going to win the series. I think they're going to sweep them, but we may not see complete game shutouts type of deal, right? We may see like 5 or 6 innings of work and move on from there. All right. All right. Let's take a timeout. We have some more series to go over. Some are, again, that ULM Texas State one, I don't think there's going to be much of a series, but we do have some other series to go over. All right. We will come back and talk about them. But first, let's talk a little Birddogs, shall we? I received a couple of pairs of shorts of Birddogs, and they're incredibly comfortable. They fit fantastic. Their stretchy fabric makes my legs look great, although my legs always look great. They're more comfy than my other shorts and pants. They give me the freedom to wear one pair of shorts or pants on the golf course, to a meeting, hanging out with friends, or even on a date. So go to birddogs.com/lockedon, and when you enter promo code LOCKEDONCollege, they'll throw in a free custom Birddogs Yeti style or tumbler with every order. Something that looks like that. So go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege, and when you enter the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, you get a free Yeti style tumbler with every order. All right. Go try them. They're certainly worth it. They are comfortable. And I'm always looking for some good new pair of shorts. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Let's get back to the series this weekend. And did I do this again? Did I lose my spot again? Why can't I say that? There you go. All right, so Southern Miss Louisiana is going to be a good series. I presume Southern Miss is going to take 2 out of 3. We'll see what happens. The Cajuns have been playing extremely well, especially the Bats. All right. Coastal Carolina is probably going to sweep Marshall at that point in time. All right. Now, here you go. Here is the tough spot. You got Troy versus App State. Feels like a 2 out of 3. I think I said that wrong. It's App State at Troy. Sorry. So Troy is 4th. App State is 5. And let's check out the standings. So Troy is 16-11. App State is 15-11. So, I mean, App State would have to win. Is that 2 out of 3? Well, if they win 2 out of 3, then Troy will have some losses. They're a half a game behind Troy right now. So Troy would have to worry about falling behind James Madison. If they lose 2 out of 3, Troy would be 17-13. If James Madison takes 2 out of 3, they're 16-13 because they've played 2 less ball games. So that's where James Madison is in a little bit of a hole. All right. And I know they're playing App State, but if App State takes 2 out of 3, right, then they are 17-12, and that is better than 17-13. So App State would move into the 4th spot. All right. And all these teams right now, again, you're basically Southern Miss and Coastal Carolina, like we said, South Alabama at the bottom. Southern Miss and Coastal Carolina are basically at the top, all right? And it's the Cajuns, Troy, App, James Madison, Texas State, and I guess Old Dominion, all trying to get to the top 6, all right? Now, you do have Old Dominion and Georgia State and Georgia Southern. So, for example, I guess it's feasible, right? Old Dominion could sweep, go 17-13, and all of a sudden they're tied with the Cajuns if the Cajuns get swept. That's why they just have to win 1. Now, the chances of Old Dominion sweeping Georgia State, slim. But you never know. Right? I would have said the same thing to both the Cajuns getting swept by James Madison and the Cajuns sweeping Texas State. So we'll see what happens. As they say, that's baseball. But App State had to move into 4th place, I guess. App State has to take 2 out of 3. So let's go the other way. What happens if App State loses 2 of 3? They would be 16-13, and they could fall down perhaps out of the top 6. That could be a problem. They're sitting in 4th place now. That's going to be a problem because Texas State, let's go on to the next series. We'll skip the James Madison series for now. Texas State is hosting ULM, and Texas State is 7th. They're going to sweep, okay? So Texas State is going to finish 18-12. If the Cajuns take 1 ball game, they will also finish 18-12. But because they swept Texas State, they'll get the nod into the higher spot, which would be 3rd, I guess. All right. So we'll see what happens between Troy and App State. That's going to be a lot of fun. Then you get James Madison taking on Georgia Southern. And again, I don't know what's happened to Georgia Southern. They just lost 3 in a row. They got pounded by their rival, Georgia State, last weekend. James Madison has 2 less ball games than most teams. Most teams have played 27. They've played 25. But because they have more losses than most, or the same amount of losses in the loss column, then they have to win all 3, right? They would have to go, think about this, they would have to go, if they sweep Georgia Southern, they would be 17-11. Well, 17-11 is a better winning percentage, let's figure that one out, than 18-12, I think. Do I need to do that on the math? Quickly on the math? There is no math. So what did I say? 18 and I can't believe we're doing math. So we say James Madison, 17 divided by 28. That's not it. That's not a winning percentage. So 17. It's 17 divided by 28 is 607 winning percentage. That's correct. All right. Then you do 18 divided by 30, and that's 600. So there you go. How about that? So James Madison, if they sweep Georgia Southern, they could take third place because they would have 17 and 11 is better than 18 and 12. That one loss crushes the Cajuns. Now, it's not that big of a deal. As long as you're in the 3 through 6, you're in good shape. Okay. Let's see where we are time-wise. I can't believe I did math in the show. My understanding is that there would be no math. All right, so let's take one more timeout. We'll do the thanks, and we'll come back and wrap things up. A couple of more series to go over. Again, this station's continuing to grow. We will be in Baton Rouge on Saturday. A little, I don't want to say too much effort, but not enough payoff, I guess, to be there for a 2:00 ball game, and then having to do the show at 4:30 and not accomplishing what I wanted to help out the station. So we will be back, and we'll have a nice post-game show following the Raging Cajuns on my station 103.3 The GOAT. So we will be there on Saturday and, if necessary, on Sunday. So, again, we'll be covering that. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll get back to the football once the baseball ends. We still need, and the softball ends, we still need to talk to a couple of basketball coaches that should be available here. I know the portal is still going fast and furious, but we need to talk to the new basketball coaches at Georgia Southern and at Arkansas State. Please, if you see the videos on YouTube, share, put some comments in there. I will answer them. And then, if you see it if you want the audio portion of it, you're certainly welcome to listen to it. Just search wherever you get your podcasts from, Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeart, Amazon, wherever that may be. We're still growing, and again, we'll get back to the bigger sports once these end. But it's been a lot of fun, and baseball's been here, and then we may go to Montgomery if the Cajuns are in the semifinals. We may go up there, which is Saturday and Sunday. We may try to do that for just one night. All right. Again, thanks so much for tuning in to Locked On Sunbelt. Let's get back to the series. Let's see which ones we had to do. Again, Texas State and ULM, that's going to be a sweep, I think. Another one is going to be ODU and Georgia State. That's going to be a great series. ODU is 8th, and Georgia State is 9th. ODU beat James Madison in the final game of that series last weekend, and that pushed James Madison from 4th down to 6th. I think if James Madison, this would be even nuttier if James Madison was 15-10. It's already nuts. They're 14-11. It'd be even nuttier if they were 15-10. So Old Dominion got a big win to finish up that series. Meanwhile, as we've been mentioning throughout the show, Georgia State sweeps Georgia Southern. And now Old Dominion, Georgia State, and Georgia Southern all tied for 8th. They will not finish that way since Old Dominion and Georgia State are playing each other. So it's anybody's race in that ball game. All right. Again, I don't think either one is going to sweep. I think it's a 2 out of 3. Do you give the nod to Old Dominion because they're playing at home? They're pretty even ball games. And then we do have, as we mentioned earlier, South Alabama is going to Arkansas State. I would think South Alabama is going to sweep, but they may lose interest if they are officially eliminated early on in the weekend, say on Thursday, if Georgia Southern or Georgia State win. All right. We will do a preview of the tournament once we have the bracket on, the bracket will come out on Saturday, but we'll do the preview of the tournament on for Monday's show. Scott Watkins thinks it's up for grabs. I don't. I think it's Southern Miss or Coastal Carolina. I'm not sure the Cajuns can, match up with those teams. I think there's some other teams that like the Cajuns that have some bats. I'm not sure that they have the pitching that Coastal Carolina and Southern Miss have. Some people think maybe Coastal is a product of their ballpark, kind of like Texas State, but we'll see. All right, Montgomery plays as a big ballpark, and if you don't already know, the train goes by during the game. It is right there, and it is really loud. So we'll see if we go up there. We had a lot of fun a couple years ago when actually we covered South Alabama, and the Jaguars ended up winning the conference tournament. Okay, thanks so much for tuning in to Locked On Sunbelt. I am your host, Dave Schultz. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you again on Friday.